Hey everyone, this is Drive By coming at you. It's March of 2020, and I'm recording this video to give you a quick introduction to how you can be involved in leadership roles at the Rose City Rollers. So we'll spend the next few minutes talking in broader strokes about the ways that you can get involved, and then talking about how you can reach out to get connected with other folks to find more about what leadership opportunities are available at the immediate moment. So today we're going to talk a little bit about who RCR is as a larger organization, what it looks like to be a leader, what are some of the expectations, and then we'll go through the 5 different types of roles that you might consider if you're interested in kind of stepping into a new capacity. And then we'll talk about those next steps. So to get us started, RCR is in fact a 501c3 nonprofit. We are the world's largest roller derby league, currently with over 600 skaters, 450 non-skating volunteers. We do have 8 employees, which is unheard of in my experience so far, the roller derby community. We host 50 public events per year, plus 5 fundraising events, and we have a $750,000 operating budget. So as a 501c3, we're doing quite well financially, and we continue to grow. At this time, we are still in the stages of looking for our new home, our new facility, our new venue, and so a lot of that money is dedicated to that in savings. But good to know that we are a sizable organization and not just a small business that's kind of creeping through and getting by. So these are things that are important to keep in mind because our mission as a 501c3 highly impacts a lot of the leadership roles that we'll talk about today. So important to know also that all of this work is accomplished through volunteers, through leaders, through the members of the organization helping to create the league that we want it to be and to create the vision that we have for the future. So that's where a lot of this comes into play. It's our vision, our mission statement, and how we serve our community, which I think is really critical to keep in mind. Some of the leadership roles focus on kind of operational things. Some of them focus on larger organizational pieces. We do run that balance that a lot of nonprofits manage of how do we serve our members and be successful as a nonprofit financially and be successful serving our larger mission and making sure that the decisions we make don't deviate too far from that is really important. So I encourage you to check out these slides, click on our full vision and value statement, get familiar with some of those pieces. So things that leaders at RCR do are really know and live our core values. We play strong, train smart, and have fun. We welcome and embrace differences, respect the game and each other. We keep making it better, and we bring our best selves and trust others to do the same. And I think that these are really important to keep in mind because these are the pieces that, for me as a leader within the organization, can get pushed a little bit. I have been pushed to reconsider what does it mean to bring my best self. I have been pushed to consider what does keep making it better mean in different roles, and what does that look like, and when am I pushing too much in a way that no longer respects other people's differences, and when am I pushing in a way that helps us get closer and closer to fulfilling our mission. So these are things that I'd encourage you to think about as you're considering a leadership role. Some of these pieces that we're going to talk about next in terms of what to expect as a leader are the pieces of feedback that we've heard from people who have volunteered as leaders throughout the org over recent years. So you will find a great deal of ambiguity. As the largest roller derby league in the world, we are constantly breaking new ground. We are encountering things that no one else has encountered before, and we're figuring them out as we go. And so we want leaders and members, but especially leaders, to be thinking about what is sustainable logical change. How can we build something that not only works today, but works when we have another 100 skaters, works when we have another 200 volunteers, whatever the case may be. That scaling piece is really important. We also have a lot of technological tools. As such a large organization, we've had to implement that so that we can stay connected and we can grow and we can do a lot of documentation. So you will be using those tools. If you're not familiar with them, you'll learn how to use them. If that is something that makes you horribly uncomfortable, talk to some people who are in some leadership roles. Find out how hard it was to learn. Find out what they needed to know, how much. By no means do you need to be like a tech expert, but really being able to use those tools on a regular basis. And I think the hardest thing that I see are people who become avoidant of doing tasks because they're intimidated by the tools. We would all rather sit down and talk about how do you use this tool and give you a tutorial than have you feel like you can't be successful and kind of, retract or retreat from your leadership opportunity. Yeah, but be prepared to learn and grow that way. As a nonprofit, things will move slower than you want them to. It's the nature of working with volunteers, people who have a lot of opinions. I personally work in the tech industry, and there's a hierarchy, and people make a decision and you roll with it. And even in the best circumstances where we're given lots of opportunities to give feedback and influence change, we keep moving forward at all times. And as a member-led organization, as a nonprofit, as a group that has fewer staff than we do members, you will find that we're going to move a little bit slower. We're going to honor the fact that somebody wasn't feeling well, or we're going to honor the fact that somebody had a life crisis come up, and that is a part of the pace. So we want to keep moving forward. We want to hear your great ideas. We want people to keep asking questions, but be ready for that kind of moderation to be a part of this. Is definitely a DIY ethic. And I think this goes back into that being innovative, breaking new grounds. And we're going to have to come up with new processes. That doesn't mean we throw everything away just because it's already created, or that we adhere to things just because it's been created. We want to be smart and strategic about where we put our energy, but definitely kind of finding that balance of building it ourselves and looking at what already exists in the world and how we can improve. We really have to trust the best in one another. We have to assume that people are coming from a positive and productive place. I think a lot of what members and leaders at our organization are learning communication styles with people who are different from themselves. That's a part of our core mission, and is helping people embrace those differences. So as we encounter that, learning new communication styles, talking with people, being able to think of things from a growth mindset rather than a limited mindset, all of those sorts of pieces. Look for the solutions, and look for ways that you can contribute to a solution. And that's interesting as a leader because you're also trying to foster that in other people and not just yourself. Also, meetings. We aim to make meetings productive. I think we've all heard the different memes about like, well, that meeting could have been an email. We'll all stumble into it sometimes as a leader or as a participant. But we want to be as productive as possible, using agendas, following up with meeting notes, being clear about purpose and intent, and making sure that everyone walks away with clear takeaways and clear action items from meetings. But it does mean that as an organization, we're going to have meetings. So be creative, be thoughtful, be intentional with those. That brings us to having covered the general expectations. So let's talk a little bit about what leadership is. And we have a lot of different levels within the organization. We've got appointed team leaders, skater program leadership. We've got committees, and some of these roles are elected and some of them are appointed. So as we kind of go through the different sections, you'll hear a little bit about that. And then we also have our board of directors, which is, as a 501c3 nonprofit, something that we're required to have. So we'll dig into that a little bit today too. So why would you want to join leadership? I think it's important to ask yourself today, right now, why did I even bother to listen to this video? Why did I even express an interest, and what is my motivation? And listen through the different roles to see if the role you think you're interested in matches your personal motivations. We're trying to be as frank and upfront with everybody as possible. And there are different ways to influence change within the league. So different roles fulfill different niches. So some of the reasons why we think you should join leadership are to influence the future of roller derby. We are doing cutting edge work here, and that will spill out to other leagues around the world. And so that's very exciting. A lot of us are gaining professional experience with budgets, networking, business skills, communication skills, nonprofit law. There's a lot of different things to be learned through the work that we do, and also by working with other people who have knowledge that you don't have. I like to think of it as an exchange. For everything I bring to the table, I get a lot more and take that away with me. If you're not already someone with league voting rights, you get the opportunity to do that, which can be pretty great. And you also get to be a liaison between league members and org-wide decisions. And I think that that's true regardless of what your role is. So I sit currently on the board of directors. And so the things that we talk about tend to be broader in scope. But when people come to me with very poignant operational pieces of feedback about a policy that was made or a decision that was made or how something functioned at a recent game, sometimes I'm like, that's really interesting. Let me figure out who to route you to so that you can give that feedback to the right person. And sometimes they're telling me that thing that isn't really my responsibility on the board of directors, isn't really the thing that I make decisions about. But I'm like, that makes me think of this other decision that we made. I can hear your frustration and I understand why that didn't feel great. Let me tell you about a budgetary decision that we made that may have influenced that, right? So practicing that transparency to help people stay connected in such a large organization, because you don't always, even the most well-intended of us, you can't always have all of the information. So I really enjoy being able to be a liaison and share some of that context with members when it comes up. So expectations, things that will be expected of you as a leader in the organization. You will want and need to use your RCR email daily to weekly. I find myself logging in there pretty much every day to at least skim and figure out what I need to respond to. And even if on that individual day, I don't have time to respond to it immediately, I've checked it, I know it's there, I'm thinking about my reply, and then I can get back to folks within the next 24 hours. So I wouldn't say that in most roles you should expect to spend a ton of time, but it does mean, that not checking your email for 2 weeks is not helpful. I don't know if that's true for many people, but making sure that you're making it a priority and that's a commitment that you can make. Similarly, reading what's going on Apex so that you can stay available and aware will help you figure out how to subscribe to things if that helps you. That way you get the updates in your email box, you can skim the titles, you can click on things, you can go that way. Communicating with who you are representing, who you're involved with in a timely manner. And sometimes a timely manner means 24 hours, and sometimes a timely manner means within a week of that meeting, you need to get the meeting notes up. Keep people informed, keep posts going out to Apex. Don't just kind of keep information to yourself or to a small group of people. We want to practice transparency as much as we can as we're making decisions. And that ties in with communicating professionally, both in person and by electronic methods. It can be, in a leadership role, we are sometimes pushed to make hard decisions. We may get feedback that is hard to hear. We may find that people don't like our decisions or how we did something. And it's important that once you're in a leadership role, you're responding to those with a lot of polish and professionalism. That if you're struggling to respond polished and professionally, that you're reaching out to other leaders within the organization and saying, hey, I need to consult on this. I just got to talk through before I write this email back to so-and-so because I'm frustrated and I want us to get through this in a productive manner, those sorts of things. So bring in your buddies to help you kind of do that in the best way possible. Participate in forum and email discussions. We talked a little bit about that. We've talked about being prepared for meetings, especially when you're a chair of a committee, let's say, coming into that meeting prepared with an agenda, prepared to help other people be successful in that space. It's great to set expectations that they also be prepared, but anything you can do to tool and empower them is really critical. Coming to meetings, including league meetings, I think that's one that surprises people, but even if the agenda is set at a league meeting for something not necessarily directly related to your role, be prepared to answer questions, be prepared to give an update, be thinking about, what can I contribute to the next league meeting, or what do people need to know about what my committee or program is doing? How can I get that information out there? So these are a couple more details about, 48 hours before a meeting, 48 hours after a meeting, be thinking about what's responsible. And then also, this one I think is pretty important, about advocating for RCR. Being positive about your presentation of the league in the broader community. I find myself consistently in conversations where I can choose to step up and say, yeah, I'm on the board of RCR. What can I tell you about that? And it might be while I'm at the bar having a cocktail with my partner and somebody sees my jacket, right? Or it might be when I am at a business meeting and people are talking about roller derby. It comes up, it really does, right? And for me, I have the opportunity there to be like, yeah, I skate, it's really awesome. Or I have the opportunity to say, I'm so proud to be a part of this league. We are developing so many leaders. Have you heard about our youth program? Have you heard about our groundbreaking rent and roll program that increases access for skaters, or our scholarships, right? How do I present that information? It's not just don't present us poorly. It is how do you advocate? How do you promote us? How do you help us connect to greater influencers and to building additional relationships in the community? Expectations, log your volunteer hours. This is something I hope everyone in the league is doing, demonstrating involvement from both skating members and non-skating volunteers helps us as a 501c3 apply for grants, demonstrate our value, demonstrate the participation, those sorts of things. So yeah, please be doing that. Even if you don't take on a leadership position, it's really critical for our success. Do follow your position description. Know your position description. Read it before you take the role. Read it before you express interest in a role. We've done our best to really keep those position descriptions relatively up to date. And so you should know your purpose. And that's not to say that a position description will say, you meet every Tuesday at 4 o'clock. It's probably more to say, what is the purpose? How do you operate? Who are you responsible for? So take a look at those and know them, love them. If you're in the role and the role starts to shift, talk to folks around you and say, I think this position description needs to change. I'm not really sure this is the purpose of the role anymore. And by pushing that conversation forward, you are pushing for alignment within the organization. And that alignment is more important than that document. Because it may be that everybody around you says, actually, I don't think the role is changing. And that's a critical and important and sometimes hard conversation to have. So pay attention to that while you're in a leadership role. Be mindful of when leadership trainings are happening. How do you get involved? We're going to find that a lot more of our ongoing trainings and our succession planning is happening using this online learning management system. So being mindful of that. And when you sit down to watch videos or listen to recorded trainings, be paying attention and taking in as much of that information as you can. And when all else fails, or maybe before all else fails is a better way of saying it, seek out folks who can help you be better all the time. And that might be within the league and that might be externally. I have definitely sat down and had conversations with people I work with in business and said, I'm really intrigued about what you said, not so much for like what I'm doing at work, but for what I'm doing with a nonprofit in my personal life. And I'd love to learn a little bit more about like, how did you manage that, I don't know, marketing scheme, or like, how did you engage a community, or find those people that you can talk to confidentially, respectfully, who can help you grow and be better. And again, they might be inside the league, they might be outside the league. They're probably flattered that you're looking for their insight. You're not looking for them to like do your job for you or talk to you every week or whatever else, but knowing that you have a confidant, knowing that you have somebody you can process through things with. I don't want you to be alone when you're a leader. That stinks. That's a lot of pressure. So find the opportunities, find the people that you can trust and connect with. Similarly, we know that conflict comes up. I love being a part of the roller derby movement because we have so many strong personalities. But we're building a sport. We don't have a lot of experience with that, and we're going to disagree on what's the best way. And that doesn't mean that folks aren't all coming to that conflict with the best intentions, because they probably are, but we have to figure out a way to work through that conflict and move forward. So our ask is that you address conflicts right away, that you loop in our staff when it gets a little bit stronger than maybe you are comfortable with or are prepared to handle. And also loop in HV, loop in our staff or whoever your committee is reporting to, right? Loop that person in and see like, how can we realign things so that it does make sense, so that everyone in the organization feels like they are able to be successful? And there are places where that's actually becomes really important, whether or not the person wants to. And I hate it when that happens. It's not pleasant for anybody. And hopefully, by doing a lot of the other things that we've discussed today, we can prevent getting to that point. Um, but be prepared for it, because sometimes that happens and doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad leader. It means that life happens and humans are humans. So I'm going to pause and take a sip of water there and let everyone breathe for a moment. And we're going to move forward talking about the 5 types of roles. So we have adult team programs. We have staff committees. Those are committees that report to a staff member. We have leadership committees, board committees, and the board of directors. So this is what we're going to talk about here. So adult team programs are probably things that if you're currently a skating member, you're the most familiar with. It's strategically driven work for skaters in conjunction with the training committee. So different sorts of ways that we're building on that. I'm a part of Wreckers. I think that's a really great example, because while my experience as a skater is, we're a team, these are my teammates, functionally within the business organization of the 501c3, we're not a team, we're a program. And so there's a leadership team that is helping to make decisions about that. It's not just 2 captains, not just, I mean, our captains are amazing, don't get me wrong, but it's not solely 2 captains making decisions. We have a bigger leadership committee, because they're making decisions about how do we onboard new members, what kind of rallies, like what kind of support do they get, how are we developing our clearances, those sorts of things. So there's a few more moving parts that are handled within that program, touching base with different pieces across the organization. So you'll find that adult team programs have a mission, a strategic goal, the capacity to create or drive change in the program. Conducts ongoing concrete tasks rather than strategic initiatives. So if you're somebody who likes something maybe a little bit more tangible, something where you can see results, but you would like to be a leader within a group context, a program role might be a great opportunity for you. So some examples of elected leaders are wreckers, home teams, travel team, officials. You might be appointed or confirmed into roles like merch or radmin. These will come up and will evolve as an organization. So, but if you like something that you are running a program and you're seeing kind of the operational results, but you're still thinking strategically about the organization and the growth of the organization, this could be a good fit for you. Staff committees, 2 great examples of this are our sponsorship committee and our staffing committee. So it's directly tied to the work of a particular staff person. So you might work with Catherine, you might work with HV, you might work with Rocket Mean. We're driving these towards annual goals, which is why you do report into a staff member, is because these are things that we've deemed as absolutely mission essential to being successful. And to the longevity of the organization as well. So we do have an application process, and the operations manager, which right now is HV, will help identify those leaders and get them into those positions. Leadership committees, you'll find examples of this within officials, the accountability committee, and training committees. Those are great examples. These have a mission, strategic goals, and the capacity to create or drive change in the league, and complete annual evaluation of goals. So these start to get closer and closer to the board of directors level, or like Rocket Mean at the executive director level. How are things flowing into that greater vision for the league? How are we tying that in with that growth? So these are committees that will influence league-wide policy, influence culture. It's likely to result in a lot of feedback from the org, because you're going to touch a lot people in a lot of different programs, is the other piece to keep in mind there. So as you're looking at that, think about, do I like getting a lot of feedback? Do I like having influence or sway? Am I someone who hears feedback from a lot of different places within the organization? Am I someone who's excited to hear different ideas and try to find new ways to make everyone happy as much as we possibly can, right? How can we take all of that and weave it together? So this is getting a little bit higher level. Then we have board committees, and these are, oh, I forgot to mention that all of these have an expected term. So these have a 2-year term, much like the leadership committees. If you take on a leadership role in a leadership committee, we're hoping that you'll stick around for 2 years. Now we know life happens, you move, you, I don't know what else happened. You move, you have a baby, you get married, whatever, like things happen. And that is absolutely acceptable. But we're hoping that when you say yes, you have a clear intention of like, I'm going to do this for 2 years. So the board committees are much like that. Our budget finance committee is a great example. Our governance committee is a great example. Part of the reason I think these 2-year commitments are really important is that these are dramatically more complex pieces that it's not even that they're more complex. It may also be that they're slower to influence. You really have to understand kind of what the foundation is as you move forward. You can't just rush in and make a bunch of decisions. You've really got to understand where it's been coming from. Why have we done what we've done? These are committees where, in my experience, a lot of people getting on them don't necessarily already know everything about them. So there's a tall learning curve there. So you're looking at annual goals. You're probably driving decisions that dictate the health and well-being and the longevity of the organization. So it might not be the stuff that every member is thinking about on a daily basis. It's going to be the higher level synthesis of those pieces. But in a way that is absolutely mission critical and is influencing the fact that we will have a league 5-10 years from now because of the decisions that are made on these committees. So board committee members are appointed by the board with support from the governance committee. So we help identify those leaders and then we get them on there. So the board of directors then are officers elected by the league and members at large appointed by the board. If you're interested in a board of directors role, I encourage you to do kind of some of your own research out there about how do board of directors work at other nonprofit organizations. Right now, we have a hybrid board. We have some people on the board who are members of the league, and we have a number of folks who are not members of the league. Some of those folks were heavy volunteers before they became a part of the board. Some of them were somebody with a subject matter expertise that we got introduced to. They were passionate. They weren't necessarily an active volunteer, quote unquote, before getting involved in the board, but they knew the league and they were familiar with the league. So if you're listening to the board of directors description today and you're like, actually, I know somebody, and they're not a skater, they're not a volunteer yet, but I think they could really help us make some strong business decisions. Awesome. Make that introduction. We'd love to meet them as much as we would also love to have you on the board. So the board of directors are driving policy and strategic decision. And the board of directors is helping us stay legal and stay in business. And a lot of that is staying ethical and making sure that the decisions that we're making do tie back to our core mission. And there's a legal implication that we'll get into there for the board of directors as well. So for a board of directors role, you can expect to spend probably 10 to 12 hours per month. That includes like the email and the forum checks that we were talking about. We have meetings roughly every other month on a Sunday morning. Right now they happen on a Sunday morning. And then for the second half of the year, we start doing some additional meetings to review the budget and do some things like that. So, and then as certain things spin up, there'll be other opportunities to weigh in with your expertise and kind of take a look at something. So this is a role that is good to have some flexibility with, but also is really powerful in kind of the way that you look at the health and longevity of our organization. So what does a board do? We represent the league to the greater Portland community. We direct and help make decisions about policy. We're not so much about implementation. So we might, at a board meeting, make a decision. Here's a great example. We recently updated our mission statement. And so the board voted on what the mission statement should be. And at one meeting, we said, you know what, we really need to talk to the league members more before we vote on this. So we went out, we talked to the league members, we put a post on Apex, we got feedback, a board member took the lead on those communications. Then we came back and we said, hey, here's what the league said. And we made a vote. And we changed the wording of our mission statement. Now, the board isn't going to go out there and start changing that in all the documentation. That's going to be up to the staff and other volunteers on those different committees, people who are responsible for those different portions of documentation, our website. The events team is going to, update our mission on the slideshow that plays at games, those sorts of things. So as a board of directors, we're thinking strategically about what's the right decision, what's the implication of changing our mission statement. Does that going to impact any of our grant funding? Is that going to impact our ability to partner with any of our existing community partners? Those sorts of pieces. We're thinking about it at that big picture. And then we're trusting that people in other roles in the league are going to take that because we've made a good decision, hopefully. We've made a good decision, and other people within the league are going to take that and run with it and figure out how to implement it throughout the organization. We actively participate in fundraising, and we actively donate in a way that is personally meaningful. And this is one thing that I think surprises people sometimes, is that there's money involved. And the philosophy, I used to work for another nonprofit, and the philosophy here is that if you believe in the org enough to be on the board of directors and represent the organization, then you must believe in the nonprofit mission enough to be contributing some of your own finances. And what I love about RCR is that we are at a stage of the game that we've said, what is personally meaningful to you? And so we're not saying you have to contribute or you have to fundraise to the tune of X number of thousands of dollars, right? We're saying, can you give back? Can you throw a little bit in the scholarship fund? Can you throw a little bit towards the juniors roller rally? Whatever that might be, contribute in a way that is meaningful to you and in an amount that is meaningful to you. This is also important because when we go and apply for grants and other sorts of funding, they do in fact ask nonprofits, what percentage of your board made a contribution last year? So it's really important for us to be able to say, yes, everyone on our board contributed in some way, shape, or form. And if you're a member of the league right now, you might be thinking, oh, I already pay dues, I already buy tickets, merch, whatever else. But this is really important, and it's an important piece of that. And I want to really just say that, it doesn't have to be a large amount. We want it to be something that you're like, yeah, I believe in this, so I'm going to throw down a couple extra bucks because I believe in this mission. Participates in fundraising. Similarly, I used to work for another nonprofit, and their board actually had fundraising requirements, and it was almost like if you don't raise this amount of money, you might end up contributing that extra amount of money yourself. And we don't do that here. We are setting kind of goals for members of the board to say hey, it's our end of the year appeal. The goal is that every board member gets 5 people outside of the league to donate, or the board is aiming to get $100 donated. I think it was $120 that I was working on. I can't remember the exact goal, but it was how can I be actively participating? And so that is to say that I am reaching out to my friends, to my family, to my business partners to say, hey, can you contribute? This is something I believe in. Will you help us to be financially successful? Will you help us provide scholarships? Will you help us sponsor Rent and Roll? Whatever that might be. So you do need to be an active participant in that. Now, I know that sounds redundant because we always ask our membership, our volunteer membership, our skater membership, we ask everybody to be doing that. But at the board level, we kind of up the ante a little bit and ask you to be a little bit more active in that. Things that you should click on in this, that you should dig a little bit deeper on from this presentation are our 3-year strategic plan. You can also access all of our meeting notes and agendas. So if you want to know what one of those Sunday morning meetings is with the board of directors, you can find our notes and dig into them if you're a member. You'll find them on Apex and kind of get a sense of the types of topics that we talk about and then how we spend our time. I also think our 3-year strategic plan is really important to click through on because that really dictates where our energy is going. We're all assigned to different branches of our key objectives and outcomes. And so you'd be working on one of those. And those are continuing to evolve. So I'm not going to summarize them in a video like this, but go check out the live docs and be able to see kind of what's going on at the time that you're watching this video. That was a lot of words. Plain talk. We pay attention to what's going on And we make sure that as an organization, we are advocating for the health of the organization over personal or team interests. So there are legal ramifications for being on a board. We're reviewing tax statements, we're approving the budget, we're saying that this money is being used ethically and responsibly under the mission as we have written it. And so that's really important. So take a look at the guide to nonprofit board service in Oregon. These are some legalities. We do have some, I forget what it's called. It's like a board of directors insurance that would protect us in a legal case if something were to come up. But I do think it's important to think about this. Duty of due care. Are we thinking prudently? Are we reviewing the documents that were sent? Are we asking good questions? Are we engaged in our position and thinking about the health and well-being of the organization? A duty of loyalty. Are we looking out for the interests of the charitable organization above and beyond maybe like our own finances or our own business interests, or maybe our own interests as a member of the organization, that sort of thing. We'll talk a lot about conflict of interest in the board training, for example. And then duty of obedience. As we know what nonprofit law is, we must express our questions, our answers, our opinions, and speak up and say, I know that's that's a really great idea, but that sounds like it's in contradiction to what our bylaws say. And so we really need to take that into consideration and ask a few more questions before we move forward with this decision. Right? It's stuff like that. We're not expecting people to have all of the answers, but to ask good, healthy questions with the information that you have to help the organization move forward. That was a mouthful. Next steps. If you're interested in a role, availability and process will shift throughout the year. So HV at Rose City Rollers is going to be your go-to contact person. But you will find that lots of times positions will open up and we'll be posting for them and saying, hey, we're looking for a new chair for this committee, or hey, we have a vacancy on the board of directors. You will find that there are times when those 1 and 2 year appointments come up, and so something is in process, and so we'll be saying, hey, we're looking for applicants, those sorts of pieces. So keep your ears open, and if you're interested in something, reach out to HV right away, or reach out to someone in that leadership position right away, and let's have a conversation about like when we think a position will open up. Because if you're interested, I'd rather get you information, get you training, get you familiar, those sorts of pieces, than have it just kind of like sit unknown. So talk to us, let us know what's going on. I do believe that brings us to the end of our content today. I feel like that was a lot of information, so please go back, read through the slides again, hit us up if you've got questions, talk to the people around you. Bottom line is that RCR is a nonprofit organization driven by our membership. We become a better organization because our membership asks us to become the organization that they need us to be. And we rely on the networks and the knowledge of those members to help us find even more talented, additional talented volunteers, board members, etc. So if you know someone or you are that someone, I hope that you will take a few minutes to consider your motivations, figure out what sorts of topics and what sorts of positions are of interest to you, and hit us up. So thank you so much for your time and attention, and we'll talk to you soon.